Welcome, and thank you for joining me on this e-learning session in regards to Job Retention Scheme and Furlough. My name's Karen Knighton. Do please note that the detail contained within this e-learning session is based on GB employment legislation. Clients in the jurisdictions of Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, Jersey, Guernsey and the Isle of Man are asked to please contact the Advice Service to obtain information relevant to your jurisdiction. I am hoping that this will run between 30 and 40 minutes. And if you do have any questions, please do contact the 24-hour advice line. Worth making a note of the relevant number. And that's not just for advice in regards to your employee situation, but also to obtain any documentation that may help and any templates of letters which can help with any communications. New information and guidance is being made available from the government frequently. We are keeping our guidance up to date to ensure you have the most up-to-date information available. Today we'll cover what is the Job Retention Scheme, who it applies to, how to invoke furlough, public sector employers, the pay element, maternity considerations, education, early years and children's social care sectors, the portal, how to make a claim, what happens whilst on furlough, holiday furlough, and the furlough navigator. The Job Retention Scheme, built around furlough, is a scheme the government have introduced to all companies to not require people to work but still be paid 80% of their wages or salary as long as they meet the criteria. It is completely separate to layoff or shortage of work. Furlough, in its original sense, means no work and no pay. However, the scheme overrides the no pay element and requires employers to pay 80% of wages to employees, which the employer can then recover. But who can the scheme apply to? It can apply to any UK employer with a UK bank account who will be able to make a claim. But the individual they're claiming against must have been created and started a PAYE payroll scheme on or before the 19th of March 2020, enrolled for PAYE online and have a bank account. For these purposes, being on the payroll on these dates means having been notified to HMRC via an RTI submission form on or before those dates. Employees can be on any type of contract. That includes part-time, full-time, employed agency, 0 hours, variable hours, fixed term and apprenticeships. Employees not on the payroll on the 19th of March, as in an RTI submission made, cannot have wages claimed under the scheme. Guidance explains that the scheme is for employers who are severely affected by coronavirus, but acknowledges that each business will feel different impacts. It doesn't appear that employees have to be at the point of redundancy for their employers to use the scheme. The government doesn't expect that employers who receive public funding with furlough employees, but there will be a small number of cases where this is appropriate. We'll look at that shortly. Recent guidance given to early years providers, education establishments and children's social care providers does put a redundancy criterion on use of the scheme, as well as other parameters, which we will also go through shortly. When it comes to anyone undergoing a TUPE situation, the transferee can claim for employees transferred after the 28th of February 2020 if either the TUPE or of PAYE business succession rules apply to the change in ownership. There has been some changes made to the key date here, but for this it has settled on the 28th of February. Employees who are shielding in line with public health guidance can be placed on furlough if they cannot work from home. Foreign nationals on any category of visa can be furloughed. Employees who are on sick leave when the decision to furlough is made should be kept on sick leave until they are ready to return to work and can then be furloughed. If the employee becomes sick again during the period of furlough, the employer can decide whether to keep the employee on furlough or place them on sick leave. An employer cannot claim for both sick leave and furlough for the same employee at the same time. Employers can rehire ex-employees and place them on furlough if they choose to. Employers must remember that the employee will return as a full employee with all employment rights. They can claim for employees who stopped working for you on or after the 28th of February 2020, provided they were on your payroll as at the 28th of February 2020, and that is that an RTI submission notifying payment in respect of that employee to HMRC must have been made on or before the 28th of February 2020. They can also claim for employees who stopped working for you on or after the 19th of March 2020, provided they were on payroll, PAYE payroll, on or before the 19th of March 2020, and that is that the RTI submission notifying payment in respect of that employee to HMRC must have been made on or before the 19th of March. It doesn't matter when you take them back on, as long as they fit one of these scenarios. Fixed-term employees can also be rehired and furloughed, provided that their contract expired after the 28th of February 2020 and an RTI payment submission for the employee was notified to HMRC on or before the 28th of February 2020, or their contract expired after the 19th of March 2020 and an RTI payment submission for the employee was notified to HMRC on or before the 19th of March 2020. Fixed-term employees that started and ended the same contract between the 28th of February and the 19th of March 2020 will not qualify for this scheme. Employees who refuse furlough may be at risk of redundancy or termination of employment, depending on the circumstances of the employer. Normal equality laws apply when decided who should go on furlough. So how do you invoke furlough? Agreement is required, as this is a change of terms and conditions and a reduction in pay. Hold a discussion with employees to agree placing them on furlough. Once agreed, the employer and the employee must agree in writing that the employee will cease all work in relation to their employment. Any letter provided by us has the relevant section for signature. This record must be kept for 5 years. Employees cannot work for you or any linked or associated employer during this time. Moving on to the pay element. Employers must pay employees at least 80% of their usual monthly earnings up to a maximum of £2,500. They can claim for a minimum of 3 weeks. The scheme is now open till the end of June. They can choose to pay employees more than the grant, but they do not have to. Employees will still pay income tax, national insurance contributions, and any other deductions from wages. If employees have been employed or engaged by an employment business in the case of agency workers for a full year, employers will claim for the hire of either the amount the employee earned in the same month last year or an average of their monthly earnings from the last year. If they've been employed for less than a year, employers will claim for an average of their monthly earnings since they started work. The same arrangements apply if the employee's monthly pay varies, such as if the employee is on a 0 hours contract. If the employee has worked for less than a month, the employer will prorata the earnings from that month. For full-time and part-time salaried employees, the employee's actual salary before tax as of their last pay period prior to the 19th of March 2020 should be used to calculate the 80%. If employers have based the calculation on the previous guidance, as at the 28th of February 2020, and this differed, then they can choose to still use this for the first claim. Pay elements that the employer is obliged to pay can be included in the claim, and that can include wages, overtime, compulsory commission payments, and fees. Discretionary commission and bonuses should not be included. Wages of furloughed employees will be subject to income tax and national insurance as usual. Employees will also pay automatic enrolment contributions on qualifying earnings unless they've chosen to opt out or to cease saving into a workplace pension scheme. Employers will be liable to pay employer national insurance contributions on wages paid, as well as automatic enrolment contributions on qualifying earnings unless an employer has opted out or has ceased saving into a workplace pension scheme, this being calculated on the reduced wage. Employers can claim a grant from HMRC to cover wages for a furloughed employee equal to the lower of 80% of an employee's regular salary or £2,500 per month, plus the associated employer national insurance contributions and minimum automatic enrolment employer pension contributions on paying those reduced wages. Employers can choose to provide top-up salary in addition to the grant. Employer national insurance contributions and automatic enrolment contributions on any additional top-up salary will not be funded through this scheme, nor will any voluntary automatic enrolment contributions above the minimum mandatory employer contribution of 3% of income above the lower limit of qualifying earnings. This was £512 per month until the 5th of April and is now from the 6th of April 2020, £520 per month. When it comes to the national living wage, national minimum wage, pay when on furlough does not have to meet national minimum wage, national living wage because these rates are only payable for hours worked. However, if workers are required to, for example, complete online training courses whilst they are furloughed, then they must be paid at least the national living wage, national minimum wage for the time spent training, even if this is more than the 80% of their wage that will be subsidised. A reminder, national minimum wage, national living wage rates went up at the beginning of April, and they are now £8.72 for anyone aged 25 and over. And because we are talking about apprentices, their rate is now £4.15 per hour for those under 19 or 19 and over and in the first year of their apprenticeship. If you currently have a pregnant employee who is due to start maternity leave, they will start maternity leave as usual. If their earnings have reduced due to a period of furlough prior to their maternity leave starting, this may affect their statutory maternity pay. However, a recent change in law means that where the first day of statutory pay is on or after the 25th of April 2020, their usual earnings are used to assess entitlements to statutory pay, not their furlough pay. The same principle applies to contractual adoption pay, paternity pay, and shared parental leave. When it comes to maternity, employees must take at least 2 weeks maternity leave, and this is 4 weeks if they are in a factory or a workshop setting immediately following the birth of a baby, and this is a health and safety requirement. When it comes to education, early years and children's social care sectors, extra conditions have been put in place which may restrict employers in these sectors from using the scheme. Government expects all relevant organisations to consider options to reduce operating costs and secure commercial loans before utilising the scheme. Educational settings that are in receipt of some public funding should only use furlough employees in certain conditions. So the conditions in order to be able to furlough employees are that the employee works in an area of business where services are temporarily not required and where their salary is not covered by public funding, that the employee would otherwise be made redundant or laid off, that the employee is not involved in delivering provision that has already been funded, where appropriate that the employee is not required to deliver provision for a child of a critical worker and/or vulnerable child. The grant from the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme would not lead to financial reserves being created. The government is developing an online tool that will support the education, early years and children's social care sectors in working through this guidance and understanding the different funding and financial measures available to support them and their workplace through this period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. So how do you make the claim? The online portal to make a claim became available on the 20th of April 2020. Employers should make claims in accordance with actual payroll amounts at the point at which payroll is run or in advance of an imminent payroll. Employers must pay the employees all the grant they receive from their gross pay. No fees can be charged from the money that is granted. There is a step-by-step guide on the coronavirus job retention scheme available from the government online. You will need your government gateway ID to log in. Please note that there is no save and return option. You need to have all the information available to process the claim. Once submitted, you will see the claim confirmation number. This will not be emailed to you, so ensure you print a copy or make a note of the number. Calculations should be retained as HMRC may request these, and claims will be processed and paid within 6 days. Once employees are on furlough, they will not be able to work for their employer, but can undertake online training or volunteer subject to public health guidance, as long as they're not making money for an employer or providing services to their employer or linked associated employers. If workers are required to, for example, complete online training courses whilst they are furloughed, then they must be paid at least the national living wage or the national minimum wage for the time spent training, even if this is more than the 80% of their wage that will be subsidised. It will be the employer's decision over whether they allow furloughed employees to find work elsewhere during furlough, considering any current contractual restrictions on this. Employees who are union or non-union representatives may continue to carry out these functions during furlough, but must not provide services to or make money for their employer. If the employer chooses to place the employee on furlough, the employee will need to remain on furlough for a minimum of 3 weeks if the grant is to be claimed under the scheme. Employers can place an employee on furlough more than once, and one period can follow straight after an existing furlough period while the scheme is open. This means that you can have an employee working between periods of furlough. However, wages during that time cannot be claimed and 100% will be due unless otherwise agreed. Employers should seek to agree each new period of furlough with the employee. When it comes to holidays and furlough, guidance does say that the stance on annual leave and furlough will be kept under review by the government. Annual leave can be taken at the same time as furlough, but the employer must top up payment for holiday to 100%. If employees usually take bank holidays as a holiday, then employers will either have to top up to 100% or give a day off in lieu. Employers can have a rule that there is no annual leave to be taken during furlough. It is now possible to carry 4 weeks of leave to the next 2 holiday years if unable to take due to coronavirus. Employees can request leave while on furlough, and this can be refused as normal. Enforcement of holidays during this time is not covered by the guidance. It may seem to run against the grain of the scheme. Some employees may be happy to take it and they get 100% of pay, which is better to get agreement about rather than enforce it. It may be safer to not enforce at this time, as to do so may be a breach of working time regulations. We just don't know. Our partners, Bright, have a furlough navigator which will help you with the administration and recording of furlough. You can record someone's absence as furlough, and it will allow admin users and managers to log furlough for their employees by adding time off with their profile and selecting furlough from the absence type drop-down. They will then have an option to select ongoing or enter an end date. If the absence is not ongoing, the end date will automatically populate 21 days from the start date with an option for the user to amend this. Once the absence has been added, it will be visible in the employee's profile. You can then look to report and filter as needed. In summary, decide who to furlough, obtain agreement, you can rotate on a 3-week rota, and please ensure you've got confirmation of the agreement in writing. Thank you very much for your time today.